Hello, America. Big Lou here, coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska. No, April Fools. I'm in Scottsdale, and it's sunny. A few people have asked me to talk about my beef soup. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you the recipe to my homemade beef soup, but I'm not writing it down because, as I've said before, when you write things down, that's evidence. So when you make your beef soup, you're going to have to turn this video on. And I'm going to be right there with you, step by step, helping you to make the best beef soup you've ever made. Now, this beef soup is unlike a lot of other beef soup centered around beef meatballs. Now, if you don't eat beef, then you're probably not going to make the beef soup. So I'm not going to say substitute turkey or chicken or ground, soybeans for the meatball mix. This is going to have to involve ground beef. So if you don't eat ground beef, turn this video off now. But if you do, or if you have loved ones that do, here we go. So let's start with the utensils you're going to need to make your soup. Now, this is not going to be one of those Emeril Lagasse, I'll show you how to do it and all the rest of that. No, this is going to be the way I do it. I tell you, and then you do it. So, you're going to need a nice kettle, 5 quarts or more, I would say. And you're going to need a nice mixing bowl. I have a glass mixing bowl. And we're going to start by making the meatballs. So the ingredients for the meatballs is going to include about a half a pound of ground beef. And I don't care whether you get 90-10, 80-20, whatever makes you happy. The more fat content there is in the ground beef, the tastier it is. So I'm not even going to tell you what I use because I use whatever we buy. All right. So then you're also going to have about a half a cup of seasoned breadcrumbs, 1 egg, some grated Romano cheese, about 2 tablespoons. And what I like to use is I like to take some crusty Italian bread, the heel, whatever, a couple of pieces of that, and I cut it up small, like little bitty croutons, and then I soak it. I soak it in water, I soak it in milk, I soak it in something, but it's got to be wet. Now I put all those ingredients into the mixing bowl, and I mix it all up and make sure that, now we don't over mix it, we just want it to be incorporated. The egg provides a moisture to create the meatball mix. Once you've mixed it up, I mean, it's simple, you've seen other people make meatballs before. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make these meatballs a little bit smaller than normal meatballs. They're going to be about the size, not the little dinky ones that you'll see in Grandma's chicken soup. No, that's not it. We're going to make these meatballs about the size of a golf ball, maybe a little bit smaller. And we're just going to roll them in our hands, pack them together, make sure they stick together, and we're going to put those on a pan, set them aside. Okay. Now, meanwhile, we go over to the stove. We're going to get a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and we're going to cover the bottom of the pan, and not too much. We're going to put it on medium heat, and what we're going to do is we're going to fry those meatballs in that pan. Now, you don't want to get them burnt. You want them to brown a little bit, but they don't need to be cooked all the way through, because what's going to happen is they're going to cook in the soup. So we just toss them around a little bit in the bottom of the pan on a medium heat, get them brown. Don't get nervous if they get a little crispy brown in you, but as they cook and when they're done, you take them out of the soup, of the pan, and you put them aside. All right. Now, if there's too much oil or grease in the bottom of the pan, you could take a little bit of that out of there with a spoon, a ladle, or something like that. But there shouldn't be more than the covering of the bottom of the pan. And it's okay to leave those little brown bits that were created by frying the meatballs in there, because that's the best part. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take about one average size onion that's going to be peeled and diced. Dice the onion, not slices, not rings. Dice it. Dice it as small as you can. The better your knife skills, the better you're going to be able to dice it. And then you're going to take a couple of nice stalks of celery and you're going to do the same thing. And then you're going to put the celery and the onions into that frying pan in the hot oil that you fried the meatballs. And you're going to sweat those vegetables in the bottom of that pan. And you're going to move it around. And, there's going to be the brown bits that are in there from the frying of the meatballs. Don't worry about those. And if they're sticking to the bottom of the pan, don't worry about that, because what we're going to do next is, once those onions and celery have deglazed and they've gotten soft and translucent, we're going to take about, I'm going to call it 2 ounces of red wine. I don't care what kind if you use. I mean, if you like it, whatever you like to drink. If you like a dried Pinot Grigio or Pinot Noir, make sure it's red, because red wine goes with beef. Or a Merlot or a Chianti or whatever that your red wine that makes you happy. Put that right in there now. And get a wooden spoon. And you're going to mix that all up on the bottom of the pan. And you're going to deglaze the bottom of the pan with that. So all those brown bits that were in there from the meatballs, they're all going to be loosening up off the bottom of the pan, and you're going to smell how good that smells at that particular point in time. It's amazing. That's a big secret. Deglaze the bottom of the pan. There's a lot of flavor there. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to add some store-bought beef broth. That's the fastest and easiest way to get this done. And I'm going to say these beef broths come in, they're now in these cardboard containers, waxy cardboard containers that are about 12 ounces or so. You're going to pour one of those right into the pan at this time. And you're going to continue to stir, and you're going to stir the onions and the celery and what's in the bottom of the pan with that beef broth. Now, you're going to fill up that same container with some good clean water, and you're going to put another container of just the water in. Now, at this point in time, if you've got some bouillon, there's a number of different beef style additives and seasoning that you can put in. This is the time to add it. I use a prepared beef enhancement. Put a couple tablespoons of that in, but it's kind of a paste. That's a good product to use, but bouillon's the same. Follow the directions. All right, now we've got our broth cooking. We're going to start to boil that. All right. From there, I peel about 4 to 6 carrots, and I chop them up into fairly good-sized chunks. Now, we're not going to add those yet. I just have the time while the broth is boiling on the stove to get that done. And then I take a nice good head of escargot and clean it real good, because when you get it from the supermarket, it's still got mud and grease and grime and everything else in it. Wash it real good, strain it out, cut the end off, and then I start to chop it up real small. I'm saying pieces about, 3/4 of an inch to an inch chunks, like you were going to make a salad. Chop it up and start to add that into the soup. All right. Now, it's heating up. It's coming to a boil. Now what do we add? Okay. Add a tablespoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper. I add about a tablespoon of parsley, dried parsley, about a tablespoon of dried basil, a couple of bay leaves, and I'm still stirring. I'm stirring like crazy, right? And I've got the escrow in there, and I've got the seasonings in there. Mind you, the meatballs are still on the side yet. We're not adding that. Now I take 1 can of diced tomatoes, an 8-ounce can of diced tomatoes. I throw those in there. That's going to give the broth a nice deep color. Not red, it's not going to look like sauce, but it's going to give it a nice deep color. And I use the diced tomatoes because they're still a little chunky. I like that chunkiness in there. All right, now we're going to boil that and boil it and boil it and stir it. And you keep stirring it, and you're on about medium-high, and we want to bring it to a boil. All right, and once we've brought it to a boil, we're going to lower the heat. I'm going to say it's probably going to take you 20 minutes to get it to that point, 20 minutes to a half an hour. Once you've got it to the boil, then what I want you to do is I want you to add the carrots. Okay. We don't want to add them too soon, because if you put them in there too soon and they cook, they're going to get mushy. Nobody likes mushy carrots. Right? And then we're going to put the meatballs that were sitting over there on the side, minding their own business. You're going to put those back in the soup. You've lowered the heat to simmer. Now you're going to put the top on. Leave it off just a little bit, because we don't want it to boil over. You're going to let the soup simmer. I like to say at least another 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Doesn't hurt. We're going to keep an eye on the carrots, because that's what's going to tell you that the soup is done. When the carrots are nice, not crunchy, soft, but not mushy. Now, while you're waiting and the soup is simmering, get another little pot. You boil some salted water, and you get whatever pasta you think you might like that day. And usually it's a small pasta, something like ditalini or farfalle or some small pasta. We even take spaghetti and we break it up into small strands, and we add, I want to say, about a half a pound of pasta to the water. Now that's going to take about 12 minutes to cook. While it's cooking, the soup is simmering on the other burner, all mixing in together. All that love is boiling around, getting together. Don't be afraid to taste it now and then to make sure that you feel like you have it seasoned properly. And really, the only seasoning that you're going to be questioning is whether you have enough salt. So anyway, we go back after the pasta's cooked. We drain off the water. By that time, your soup is done. Now, we're not adding the pasta to the soup. Other way around. What you're going to do is you'll be contaminating that big kettle of soup by putting that pasta in, because it stays in there and it'll get mushy. But what you're going to do is you're going to add the soup to the pasta. So you take ladles of the soup and you start adding it in until it looks like a soup consistency you'd be willing to eat. Now, there you are. In about an hour, hour and a half, you're going to have the best tasting beef soup you've ever had. And you're not going to eat all that soup. Whatever that's in that big kettle, you're going to put it into containers, you're going to put it in the refrigerator, you're going to put it in the freezer, and you won't have to take an hour, hour and a half to make it the next time. All you do is take it out, heat it up, boil your pasta, 12 minutes, you're done. End of the story.